Hello and good afternoon. My name is Kit Cabello. I'm joined here today with my hosts, Paul DuPont and Daniel Lupker. This is another roundtable discussion in which we're talking about events that are impacting this country and the world through this week. So first and foremost, there's a story that we should discuss as it's going to impact us in the long run, especially as we go into 2019, and that is the current status of our economy. And as it stands right now, I have an article in front of me from Yahoo Financial, and it's in regards to the possibility of us dealing with another banking crisis. So recently there's been some legislative that's been passed, and because of this, our brilliant elected officials in Washington, D.C. may have inadvertently got rid of the Volcker rule, which is sought to curb risky behavior in response to the 2008 financial crisis. And we all remember how that turned out. A lot of people lost their jobs, businesses shut down, our economy was at risk of completely failing. And it seems that people have failed to learn their lesson. So I know, Paul, before we start filming, why don't you give our viewers and subscribers an idea of what the Volcker rule is?
Yeah, so the Volcker rule is a little bit of a fiddly rule. I described it earlier as one of the last sort of principles of Glass-Steagall that we have left. It wasn't really exactly a part of Glass-Steagall, but it's sort of one of those ideas. This is a little definition of it for you. The Volcker Rule is a federal regulation that generally prohibits banks from conducting certain investment activities with their own accounts and limits their dealings with hedge funds and private equity funds, also called covered funds. The Volcker Rule aims to protect bank customers by preventing banks from making certain types of speculative investments that contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. So it's basically certain types of moving money around in complicated ways you're not allowed to do because of their high risk. And a lot of what this rule change is talking about is changing that definition of which banks are so big that they're not allowed to do this and which banks are small enough that you're allowed to make risky loans. It's raising or changing that threshold so that more banks can do this.
In a nutshell, it's creating a loophole where it's, like I said, small banks are like, hey, it's okay if you're a certain type of bank, but if you're too big, can't do it. Now it's saying anyone can do it. It's
essentially,
fine.
or almost everyone.
Now, everyone, it's important for us to clarify that this just didn't happen overnight. Here's what happened in the spring of 2018. So this was the previous Congress, not to be confused with the current Congress that got elected on November 6th. So in the spring of 2018, a number of moderate Senate Democrats, so corporate establishment Democrats.
So moderate Republicans.
Yes, basically, teamed up with the Senate Banking Committee chair and the Republican majority to pass a package bill paring back portions of Dodd-Frank, arguing that some of the rules placed an undue burden on smaller financial institutions. Because remember, we got to look out for the little guy, but keep on giving these corporations big tax breaks.
Remember, just again from what Paul's saying, this is a rule that basically already gave this okay to little banks, and it would restrict bigger banks, but we have to look out for the little guy by allowing this to be used by bigger banks.
And don't overlook the rhetorical trick that's being used there. We've got to look out for the little bank, right? These smaller institutions. Yeah. We've got to look out for small business. It's like what you're defining as small would include companies like Lehman Brothers, right? Your version of small is still pretty gigantic. That's the rhetorical trick being used.
Yeah. But remember, we got to care about small businesses in this country.
And the problem is that this could lead to another disaster already, because as we have all seen right now, and again, we can't predict the future, but during this week, the stock market lost all of its gains from the past year. We were talking about this even before we started filming. Like, there is a good possibility that we can have 2008 or something worse happen all over again. And it's not because somebody just didn't know. People willingly did this. Our elected officials did this because, as we all know, money is speech. Corporations are people. Our Congress is bought and sold by the lobbyists, the banks, Wall Street, you name it. And so here they have this quote-unquote inadvertent mistake where they got rid of the Volcker rule so that it could be 2008 or before 2008 all over again.
And let's stick on that because the article says it was oops, we accidentally did this. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
There's nothing in Congress that in legislature passed by lawyers that accidentally happens.
And basically, too, this ruling would exempt about 97% of the 5,473 United States banks and thrifts from the Volcker rule. So, and this was reported by the S&P Global Market Intelligence. So this is, again, another disaster that's just going to happen. And it's also important to note, when asked for a commentary about this, Basically, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, the Commodities Future Trading Commission, and the Securities and Exchange Commission either declined to comment about this or did not respond to requests for a comment from any news agency. So they probably might have to somewhere down the road, but perhaps maybe at their own leisure and perhaps maybe when they have a more controlled environment, because this can lead to a huge disaster again.
As George Carlin used to say, it's a big club and we ain't in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I also think it's important to realize that already we have so many bubbles that exist. We have student loan bubble, we have used car, we have another real estate bubble, and then we have 9 additional bubbles to that. And now this is just and then of course just a stock market bubble in general.
And the trade war that's going on. The Trump war keeps on pushing on.
That's another thing. My question is, I've said for a while that we're going to have a recession or worse in 2019. And the question is really, what is the catalyst going to be? And all this is doing is, if we're looking at we were talking about fires happening in California, this is just putting a huge amount more dry kindling throughout the forest. So is this a catalyst? Perhaps. Is it going to make it bigger? Probably. But what's going to happen when this bubble finally does burst and we have someone like Trump? Because at least with Obama, when that happened under Obama, I mean, he didn't do anything to help people that were in the middle class. He didn't help the individuals at all. But he kept the economy from collapsing. And he had smart people that were able to do that. And of course, the banks made it out. No one got arrested because they basically picked his cabinet. But
thanks, Eric Holder.
Yeah. But at the same time, what's going to happen when Trump has to deal with this? Because I've said before that he's very much a version of Jackson and Hoover kind of thrown together. So I just, how is he going to act when this happens? He's just going to start blaming people, and by the time he's done blaming people, everything's already collapsed.
And remember, he has a hard time really adjusting to the fact that capitalism, which is something that he quote unquote believes in, can fail. But this is what this can lead to.
I don't think you need the quote unquote. I think he truly believes that capitalism is the best system for organizing. It's a lot of people.
It works only for him. But the thing is, like, as soon as you tell somebody like him with his mindset that, hey, we need to do something to stop this, otherwise there's going to be a complete failure, he's not going to believe it.
He's going to tell you it's a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese.
Yeah, and not to mention too, it's also important to note that the Vlocker rule notes that the OCC is reading the statute as the offering exemption to banks with total consolidated assets of $10 billion or less, and if their trading assets and trading liabilities do not exceed 5% of their total consolidated assets, it's implying a need for both criteria to be met.
Right. So you read that earlier, and my initial thought, what I said was, hang on, you're making a meter stick. There's a metric that you're asking for reporting on, your net assets, right? And you're asking the people whose profession it is, who are experts in moving money around in complicated ways.
Yeah.
Right? That's their profession, is moving money around in complicated ways. And you're going to use a meter stick for this legislation of how much is your total assets worth?
Yeah.
Does nobody see the problem with that?
I think we all see the problem, and the thing is that our voices right now are too small, and the only way we're going to really get some change to happen is if we call up our current new elected officials and ask them to stand up and to do something about this, because we can't stop the storm from coming. The collapse is somewhere down the road. We've kicked the can down the road so many times that basically we have no choice now but to accept the inevitable. But there are ways in which we can prevent it so that people aren't entirely suffering. But we're all going to get hurt by an economic collapse. It's going to happen. We are due for one. Jimmy Dore has said it. Lee Camp, Nico House, Tim Black. We have said it numerous times on our show. We've interviewed guests who said it. So it's a sad thing to really bring up, and I hate talking about it because we all know what's going to happen, but we need to address this disaster before it's too late, and we need to hold the people who let this happen accountable by that, them serving time in jail.
I want to make one very quick final point, that at the same time that's all true, the times in U.S. history where the most radical action is taken has been after crashes. Yeah. So at least there is, even though everyone's assets will get destroyed, people in the middle class will finally go, hey, something seems wrong about this picture. And then history shows when people that have power start to care about an issue, all of a sudden something's done about it.